All right. Well, thanks again, everybody, for making this a part of your day and joining us live. There is going to be a recording of this video as well. If you are watching the recording, please type #recording in the comments section below. And I want to introduce to everybody René Rodriguez, an amazing human being, first and foremost, but a prominent speaker, a leader, a mentor to many salespeople, as well as just leadership in general. René has a lengthy list that makes up his resume. He's been a consultant to Fortune 500 companies, a keynote speaker, puts on a lot of live events that I personally have attended. I've learned a lot from him. I want to encourage every single one of you to look into René's stuff more deeply. And now, added to his resume, he can call himself an author. He's got a book that's coming out at the end of this month, Amplify Your Influence. And we've got up to 100 copies of this book available to all of you. And in the middle of this video, I'm going to give you guys a little keyword to send to me in order to lay claim to a copy of René's book. So without further ado, I want to pass the baton to René and take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate you being here. I think you had a vision for why you wanted to do an event like this, because you're taking your business to the next level, and you're thinking beyond, which is what I love about what you're doing, thinking beyond just bringing donuts to your referral partners and thinking, how do I partner from a bigger perspective and add value, continued value? And you articulated that well with me. I really liked it. I think maybe can you go back to that, because I think that's an important context to set as to why we're all here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm rocking my Mariners jersey today. Many of you that know me know that I'm a huge team sports guy. I grew up playing team sports. I believe that mortgage and real estate is a team sport. And at a time like this, where there's a lack of inventory and it's very cutthroat and competitive in the marketplace, we all need to elevate our game and sharpen our tools to be the best service providers that we can be to our clients and also to each other as partners in the industry. And what I love about René is he is someone that has helped me sharpen these tools in my tool belt to try and take my business to the next level. And so this today, René's upcoming book, and we're going to do a follow-up webinar as well. All of these things combined are giving us an opportunity to, sharpen our tools and be the best versions of ourselves. And I always get that from René. So thank you for being here again, René.
Awesome. I appreciate that. So I think before we get started, I think to understand, one, thank you all for being here. And you probably don't know too much. Maybe you do, maybe you don't know who I am, my background or anything. And so I want to give you a little bit of the background. Then I wanted to dive into this. And also, I like to make things interactive. For me, my background in behavioral neuroscience is, I think, what makes me very unique in this market. But really, my focus isn't the science, it's the applied science. How do we take this and apply it to something? And so what I want all of you to do is be able to walk out of here with something that's applied. And for those of you who do get the book, really just try to bring this book to life, and it's in the value. But we have a video I want to show you. It's only just a couple minutes, but it'll give you a sense of what the topic is about, what Amplify, what Influence, and why it is. And then I'm going to ask you guys to actually put your cameras on, because this world of hybrid, it's critical that we all engage and we learn how to. And I think we're going to do a piece of this is how does all this apply virtually as well, because that is something very real. So here's just a little bit of a backdrop as to what this is about. The stage can be a scary place. All eyes are on you, judging every word that you say, every movement you make, just to see if you're going to add any value. And if you don't, well, you're done. But this isn't the only stage. Every meeting, every face-to-face interaction, every phone call carries the same pressure and the same consequence if you fail. Oh yeah, and now you have to do all of that virtually with less space, bad lighting, and horrible audio. And the expectations? Yep, they're still the same. What a lot of people don't understand is that everything that you do either contributes to or takes away from your influence. Your body language, facial expressions, voice inflections, sequence of language, micro expressions, timing. All of it is part of the equation of leadership. And I'm not talking about public speaking, storytelling, or even inspiration. All of those are a means by which we achieve what we're all here to learn, which is influence. On this journey, I'm going to give you the tools that I've gathered over the last 20 years and reveal the secrets of the world's most powerful communicators. You're going to learn everything from the neuroscience of influence to storytelling, even how to shift perception, which will literally change people's reality. I get this crazy question all the time if I know any Jedi mind tricks. Yeah, we're going to cover those too. One of the biggest changes we're all facing right now is that everything that we learned about body language has changed. When you're live and in person, you can see my hands move. But in today's world, that box has gotten a lot smaller, and we have to learn new skills. These skills are life-changing. The ability to tell your story and communicate an idea in a way that not only people will listen to you, but act upon what you're saying is truly one of life's greatest experiences. So no matter where you find yourself on this journey of influence, I promise you, this course will meet you there. I am René Rodriguez, and this is Amplify. All right. So those of you who are here, I think that, the one thing that we all have in common is not that we're in sales, but we have to influence behavior. And for my 27 years that I've been doing this as change management consultant, leadership development, keynote speaker, everything that I come back to is how can I communicate an idea in a way that people will listen to me and also act upon. And so we all have ideas that we want to share. We all have things that we want to accomplish. We all have products that we want to sell, things that we want to push forward in the world. And so I always start off with this concept, like what is influence and why is that so critical? And why not talk about sales and persuasion? Because I want you to think about the opposite of that for a minute. To understand influence, to understand that, I always look at things from an opposite perspective. So the opposite of influence would be walking into a room, no one noticing, telling a joke, no one laughing, selling a product and no one buying, setting a vision and no one following that vision. What would you say the feeling is that follows that? Most people would say the feeling of frustration. But then when you really start thinking about it, maybe a feeling of sadness and a feeling of not feeling like you matter, lack of importance, but really it's a feeling of feeling insignificant. And so here we are trying to affect the world around us. And we try either through sales of a product or communicating an idea, and nothing happens. And really what we're saying is that there's no impact on the world around us. And so we go back to this word of impact, the importance of being able to have an impact on the world around us. When I say the world around us, sometimes it's just a one-on-one meeting, and that's the world around you. Sometimes it's to your kids, and that's the world around you. Sometimes it's to your team, or maybe it's your clients, maybe it's your boss, or people that work for you. So the ability to impact people, and the people that are closest to us and wherever we are, that is that feeling where the crux of influence is felt or not. And so the opposite of that would be to have influence. Tell a joke. You walk in and people notice. They feel your presence. And you tell a joke and everyone laughs. You sell a product and everyone's buying. And you set a vision and people follow and feel inspired. What's the feeling then? It's that feeling of now I'm having an impact, and that impact breeds a sense of significance, like I matter. And so those two contrasting pieces are why I focus on influence, because it doesn't matter what you do, whether you're a real estate agent, or you're a parent, you're a police officer, or a teacher. You have to be able to create influence. And so the good news is, and this is what this book outlines, is that it's a science, and it's a science that can be learned. And so what I want to do in our time together here, and Jeff, I want to confirm how much time we have. What did we promise?
30 minutes total.
30 minutes. Okay. Well, I can go a little bit longer if you guys need questions or have questions. I'm happy to answer them.
Appreciate that.
I look at, how do we first in this virtual world, how do we show up, right? Because right now light travels faster than sound is the first thing. And so in a virtual world, what are you seeing from me? I remember when this first happened, and I was having in March of 2020, I was having set to do 100 events that year, and I saw the NBA canceled, and I started seeing all my events starting to cancel. And so I knew immediately that we needed to start figuring out how we're going to communicate in a virtual environment. And all I had was a webcam. And I talked to my videographers and I said, guys, that we've got to be able to figure out how to make it look like I'm on TV, right? How do we make it look like I'm on ESPN? They do it somehow, we can do it. I said, well, geez, I don't think we can. I said, I know we can't, but if we could, what would that look like? And 18 hours later, they come back and my DSLR camera is now my webcam. We had to go through all sorts of reprogramming and everything. And we talked about lighting and cameras and backdrops and audio, right? All of those things that if I just, I've got this audio here, but if I just remove the audio or do it in the wrong way, maybe put the microphone a foot away, and now all of a sudden it doesn't sound the same. But here, when I have my microphone in the right place, it sounds right. And the goal of that is not vanity. It's not about how, I want to look better. The goal is effectiveness, because what Harvard says is the issue that we all face when it comes to Zoom and being able to influence in this virtual world, it's about disassociation. We disassociate from this Zoom call. Like right now, there are a myriad number of things that are way more entertaining than this talking head on the screen, unless I can create some level of tension and I can create some level of novelty, because novelty and tension are what create attention. That's the formula in the brain. Novelty is triggered, or it triggers dopamine, and tension triggers norepinephrine. When dopamine and norepinephrine combine, we pay attention. And so the first thing was, how do we do that? And the research says is that we have to replicate the in-person experience. And so if I were to look at the grid right now, and how many people right now, if you were to turn your cameras on, I've only got 4 cameras. I got Jeff, Danny, Tyler. Not just Jeff, Danny, and Tyler. Okay, there's Bill. Awesome. And let's see if we can't get Michelle, Jeff, Carrion, I think, Zoom user and Zoom user. So we don't even know your names. So how are we going to be able to do business with you if we don't even know your names? So let's make sure we get our names on there. So Zoom user, Carrion, and Michelle, and Jeff, insurance agency, Jeff Miller. There we go. All right, Michelle's walking around, got the cool sunglasses on. So now we're starting to see what we look like. But this is the environment that we all show up on first when we're even presenting to our clients. How many of you right now are using Zoom to meet with clients? So 3 or all of you?
Oh.
Perfect. Okay, so most people do have some level of interaction in a virtual world. And so we got to look at, so how do we show up right now? And so the first thing that I used to do is I'd look around, I'd look at the grid view, and I'd say, okay, who are my hostage videos, right? Who are the ones that look like if they were holding up a newspaper, they could be shooting a hostage video? Excuse me. I'm also finding some sort of cough here. But, the hostage videos is the ones that have poor lighting, right? And so let's see if I can, most of you have pretty good lighting. I would say, not too bad. Yeah, so Bill, you do understand, right? You've got the camera that's hitting you just a little bit there. If we could turn you around 180 degrees, you'd see a completely different view. So are you on a laptop, Bill, or what? Oh, there you go. So let's the spotlight Bill for a minute here. So now all of a sudden, there we go. You'll see Bill has a much better angle right now because the light is facing his face versus facing the camera. Now let's see if he sits down, if we got the light behind his head competing a little bit. You might even be even better off turning off the overhead light, right? Those are things that start making a difference. And so let's get Tyler going on here. So Tyler, right? We've got the camera nice and low. You've got your hat on, and very similar to if I were wearing sunglasses, right? And so why is it that happens? So if I were to grab my sunglasses here, let me just grab them because they're right here. Let's see if this works. Okay. So you guys can see me okay? So if I show up this way and I've got my sunglasses on, a lot of times people will say, well, if I were to show up in a meeting like this with sunglasses on, immediately you'd say, okay, well, I can't see you. I can't trust you. What are you hiding? And the psychology behind that is because you can't see my eyes, we don't have to be professional body language experts to know if I'm hiding my eyes, I'm hiding the most important part of my body that communicates the most of anything, which is my eyes. And that's why poker players will play with this, because they can give away so many things accidentally. In fact, right now, the research shows that our bodies are giving away upwards of 5 seconds before we're consciously aware of what's going on. And so look at Jeff's eyes right now. Accidentally, he's got a shadow over his eyes, right? So if you were to remove your hat for just a second, watch how much his eyes light up. So now, see the light that's going on. I can see that. And the reason why you want that is because all the micro expressions are happening there. Even if you were to just tilt your hat up just a little bit, Jeff, watch what happens there. If you just tilt it just up just a little bit, or even wear it backwards. If you notice, even Bill right now, before you had that competing light, now we got all the light on your face from the outside, which makes a huge, huge difference. So these are the little things. I'm gonna go back to my other screen here. These are the little things that start making a huge impact, because first thing, we can learn all the right scripts. We can learn all the right things to say, but if there's an unconscious process that's happening, if we're not, let's see, update my spots. Perfect. Spotlight on me. If we're not conscious of all of these little elements, we're starting to communicate things in a different way. So let's go back to this concept here. I want to see who else has got it. And Michelle, I've got Jeff's feet. Okay, that's awesome. So Jeff Thornton, we can see your feet. That's pretty cool. So, but I want to go back to talking about this for a minute here. There we go. Perfect. So I want to know, how many of you, is everybody here, Jeff, with real estate? Is that correct?
Either a real estate agent or in a real estate related field. And my father, Bill, is a pastor, so he's chiming in too.
Perfect. Awesome. Welcome, Bill. That's awesome. And so I want you guys to think about this concept, because I want to give you the formula behind all of this. I know that we're already kind of running out, but the concept behind Amplify is about understanding how reality works. And so if I were to tell you, what is this right here? Anybody know what this is? And I do ask questions. You can unmute yourself. You guys know that this would be, what would you say this is?
Scissors.
It's a scissors, right? And so how do you know that this is a scissors?
It's by the look.
It's by the look?
The look, the handle, the blades.
Well, you know that because you've seen one before, right? And so the way the brain works is that you go into, and you say the brain has seen this before, and it says, okay, I'm going to go to my past, and I'm going to bring from my past what's called a frame of reference to construct the scissors. But what if your past experience was that the only time you saw this was used to stab somebody and kill them? So you'd see this and you'd think to yourself, what is this? It's a weapon. And so now all of a sudden, what if somebody were to use this to, let's say, clip their fingernails? That's what they thought. So this was a fingernail clipper. It's the only experience they had with it, but that's what people used it for. And so really what constructs the reality is your frame of reference, or what's happening. And so here's an example of how that works. I want you guys all to unmute yourselves, and I'm going to tell you a profession, and you tell me what word comes to mind. Used car salesman.
Shyster.
Shyster.
Sales.
What was that?
Sales.
Sales. Okay.
Salesman.
What else?
Yeah, hard sell.
Hard sell. So most often we get shyster, hard sell, pushy, sleazy, all sorts of negative things. So what people are doing is they're pulling from their frame of reference, and they're pulling that into the current here and now to construct a reality. And that reality becomes what we see. And so there's no different than when we present a value proposition, or when somebody pulls up, hey, I'm a real estate agent, or I'm a pastor. What kinds of frames of reference come up when we hear those words and trigger them? And your ability to influence them, it comes down to understanding how those frames construct the reality for your listener. And if you can master understanding what frames are chosen in a conversation, now all of a sudden you're moving the conversation in a better light. For example, my grandfather lived in Cuba, and he saw the Cuban Revolution was about to happen. So he wrote a letter to the President of the United States at the time and said, if you can get me and my family out of this country, I will come in and fight for yours. Somehow that letter made it to the right person, and they pulled my grandfather out along with my mother, my aunt, and my grandmother. And he went and served in the American Armed Forces for 8 years. After he served his time, he landed at Patrick Air Force Base in southern Florida, in Homestead, Florida. And what he realized immediately was that his ability, or his American dream, was really limited to how far he could walk, because there was no employment, there were no jobs in Homestead. But there was somebody who believed in my grandfather and saw what he did for this country, and got him into this older vehicle. And that older vehicle allowed him to extend his reach by 25, 50, sometimes even 100 miles to find better employment. And that person who believed in my grandfather was a used car salesman. So now, what happened there? I want to go to my whiteboard because I want to draw a picture for you of what happened there. So what I want you to think about is the situation that we just created there is a timeline, in essence, of how we communicate. I want to make this a little bit thicker so we can see it. There we go. I know I choose a different color. Let's go right there. Let's go here. So this timeline in how we communicate here. In the middle, you have the here and now. You have the past. And then you have the future. And so I asked you a question of, I just said used car salesman in the here and now, which is also known as reality. And you went back into the past, constructed this frame to understand, okay, this used car salesman is sleazy and shystery and all those negative pieces. And so when you think about it, the other way that works, for me, if I understand this is how the brain works, because this is science, for me to understand what you said, I have to pull from the frame of reference. But what if I do the job of the brain first? And I start with a frame. And then all of a sudden, you pull what I want you to pull. So for me, instead of saying this used car salesman really helped my grandfather. What? How is that possible? It doesn't make any sense. Or, hey, I'm a used car salesman. You can trust me. Wrong sequence in the brain. But I went back and I told a story about who this person was and my grandfather, what happened, and this person that helped them that just happened to be a used car salesman. And all of a sudden, I controlled the reality or the perception of what was going on. And so another example of how this works, and this is all outlined in the book. This is why Jeff wanted us to do this, really for the goal of bringing that book to life for you, so that when you go into it, you can go into it with some intentionality. The book is designed around this formula, what we call frame, message, and tie down. TIEDOWN.
Hey, Renee,
this
can
formula
I just chime
is
in
what we
real
call.
quick?
What's that? Yeah, please.
I want to just chime in real quick. Anybody that wants to lay claim to a copy of Renee's book, we've got up to 100 copies to give away. Please send me a direct message, either via Facebook Messenger, text message, or Instagram, and send me #influence to lay claim to a book. Sorry to interrupt,
Perfect.
Renee.
No, this is great. Thank you. And so when we look at this piece, the example that we go through in the book that really makes this powerful is the story of Janice. And Janice was an executive for a very, very large organization. They'd asked me to help her prepare for an interview to take over a business unit, to be the president of a $1 billion business unit. So it's a big interview. 9 hours, 10 people in the room. She basically is sitting in a chair here and 10 people or more drilling her with questions, right? So it's a very, very intense process. And so we got her prepped and we put her into a chair and we started to put 3 people in front of her and started asking her questions. And the first one was, Janice, tell us something you're proud of. And she answered like everybody else does. She answered in this here and now. And what happens when we don't offer a frame? What does our brain need to do?
Reach back.
Reach back and create a frame for us, right? So for one of the So now, when you watch me do that, what went through your mind? I looked confused. Everything went off camera. What did your brain do? Be honest.
Oh, he screwed up.
He screwed up. What else?
Technology.
Technology.
Distraction.
Distraction, right? Your brain, see, I created that gap of information or no frame of what just happened, and your brain had to fill it in. It doesn't function without doing that. And so I did this on stage at our AmpCon event where I was sitting in the middle and I'm like, so what are the most, and I paused and I just turned around and I just walked off stage and they'll feel the whole audience going, oh my God, what happened? What happened? What happened? What happened? And I'm grabbing this because people are trying to get in. So I'm just making sure that everybody else gets in. And they're wondering what happened. See, I had to claim the frame there, by the way. See, I had to tell you what was going on so you didn't freak out. And so when people are wondering what happened, and I'm backstage, I go, so pay attention to the feeling you have right now. This is what happens when you don't communicate to your customers, when you don't communicate to your family, when the silent treatment happens. Your brain begins to go haywire and has to fill it in with assumption or to seek it out. And in an organization, when we create that gap, people stop working and they start social chat and gossip, and productivity goes out the window. And so I gave you just a hint of what happened. And so we asked her this first question of tell us something you're proud of. And she just went right to the here and now. And she said, I got straight A's my last year in school. So what's our brain need to do? We don't know what that means. And so our frames have to start happening. And so I said, Renee, what'd you think of the answer? She provided no frame, so I started framing her. I said, oh, so you got straight A's your last year in school, so you're a procrastinator? Are you going to procrastinate for us as well? She looks at me like I'm crazy. I said, oh, I'm sorry. Did mommy and daddy pay for school so you didn't have to work that hard? Is that what happened? And now she's got a tear running down her eye. She didn't provide a frame, so we don't know what to think.
Now we have to make stuff up.
We have to. It's just a natural process. You get it, Bill.
Yeah.
And so now all of a sudden, she's crying, and I go, Janice, I didn't mean any of those words. I said, but you provided no frame for us. So I don't know what to think about that. And I said, but I do know it was important to you, wasn't it? And she just nodded her head. And I said, why? It took her a minute and a half to compose herself. She looks at me, and she says, when you've been told you're stupid your entire life by adults, you tend to believe them. And something happened my last year in school where I looked myself in the mirror, and I said, I'm going to believe them forever, or I'm going to do something about it. And I did something about it. So now all of a sudden, she went back, created the proper frame for us to understand this message here that is completely different.
She's driven.
Now that's what we start thinking, right? What is this process, and what are we thinking now? Now she's driven, she's a driver, all this kind of stuff, which is great. So this emotional energy, emotions start going high, right? And this is what people think influence is about. It's not. This is the first step to creating influence, is creating that emotional connection with your audience. Now we get the emotions are high, and this is where a lot of speakers and a lot of people just stop. And they assume that people know what to do with that. That's what this last step here is for, the tie down. The tie down answers the most important question of what this means to you is. And when we can take that last final step, we create the feeling of influence. And that is where people start seeing results. And so if I were to put all three together, frame, message, tie down, it sounds like this. So remember, before she started in the here and now, she started with no frame. So we had to invent frames, and we don't know what that means. But if we start with a frame, then deliver the message, and the tie down, it feels like this. And for us to understand the tie down, we have to have a clear what's called an IO. A clear IO is an influence objective. So here's how it sounds. So Janice, tell us something you're proud of. Start with a frame. Well, unfortunately, growing up, I was surrounded by a lot of adults that told me that I wasn't real smart. And when adults speak to you that way as a kid, you tend to act that way, and I didn't do real well in school. But something happened my last year in school where I looked myself in the mirror, and I said, either I'm going to believe them forever, or I'm going to do something about it. So I went out, got the help that I needed, put my nose to the grindstone, and I'm proud to tell you that I got straight A's my last year in school. Now, Bill, I'm assuming, tie down. If I do get a chance to work with you and your team, there's going to be times where our backs are going to be against the wall. We're going to be facing seemingly insurmountable challenges. But I promise you this, if I do get a chance to be on your team, I will be out there next to you, if not out in front, overcoming those challenges in the same way I overcame them in my own personal life, but this time for you and for your team. Frame, message, tie down. So what we did is we took all this emotion of this story about, people telling a kid that they're not smart, and built that emotion and channeled that emotion to a specific behavior through the tie down to create the influence. And the goal was to achieve the influence objective of getting the job by making a crystal clear picture of how this emotion and who she was, her character, and her perseverance, how it applied to the business and how we could imagine her on our team. And you know what? This person seems to be the best hire. And that is influence. And that's what this book covers. So I'll pause it there. Jeff, anything you want to cover as well? Add in?
Powerful. I can't ever get tired of hearing it. I've heard it several times in person at your events, and it just rings true every single time. So I appreciate everything that you do, and thanks for being here.
Well, I appreciate it. I think what Jeff has gotten, for those that do get this, you're going to get a free copy of this book. It was published by Wiley, #1 business book publisher in the world. So it's a legit book. I mean, this is one that we spent a year and a half putting it together. Every ounce of what I believe is all in here. And I designed it to be a reference guide and basically holding your hand through the process of really identifying what your story is, who you are, what you do, what makes you unique, and being able to articulate that in a process that communicates to the other person in a sequence, which is the science that allows people to hear what you're saying and then also act upon it, with the goal first of capturing the mind. We're in an attention-starved world. We got to be able to capture attention. Then we got to inspire the heart, and then we got to move the feet. Capture the mind, inspire the heart, and move the feet. It's really the goal of what influence is about. Any questions? I'm happy to take on any questions.
This is so applicable in any industry, I got to tell you.
So especially as a storyteller, right? If you're a pastor,
Absolutely.
you are a storyteller, right?
Yeah. And there's so much evil done in the name of religion that first impressions are everything. Like, oh, is he going to hit me over the head with something? Inviting relationship is what I'm about.
And you're right. These tools are powerful, because the storytelling aspect of a really good pastor that moves us to believe into something and really brings the word and brings it to life through story, an applicable story of what it means to me. It's not just telling a story and saying, okay, here's the story. Where most of us are wondering, well, what the heck does that mean to me?
No.
And the influential leader is the one that says, so here's why I share this story with you. And they're able to articulate down to something relevant and to who I am, what it means to me, that when I walk out these doors, I can actually do something with it. That's the power of influence and true leadership. I love that, Bill. Thank you.
Amazing. For all of you that didn't know, Renee's been battling with an ice storm in Minnesota. So, imagine how many of us, I think, in our profession would experience something like that in our life, and it would derail us and keep us from, going about our day as planned. And so I just want to share that with all of you as a testament to perseverance and practice what you preach and work ethic, all the things that René is about, what he stands for, and what he shares in his book. Him being here today, fighting through internet being in and out, and sharing all this with us is tremendously valuable to all of us. And I thank you for fighting through it.
Oh, absolutely. These are easy problems in comparison to what's really happening in the world.
As I mentioned, I'm a huge sports fan, and the Mariners are opening the baseball season against the Minnesota Twins. So I'm killing two birds with one stone here. I'm a huge sports fan, and we're about to do battle with the Minnesota Twins. So
very cool. Any other last questions?
All right, we'll be doing a follow-up. There's going to be a second follow-up webinar. Hope that all of you guys can attend once again, and I'll make sure to get it out in front of you guys well in advance. And hopefully René doesn't get thrown another ice ball, so to speak, and we'll be ready to tackle the world together.
Awesome.
And who else on your team or in your sphere of influence needs to hear this? I really think word of mouth advertising is the best.
I think René's sharing his screen so that everybody can follow him on Instagram. That's his handle name, See René Speak.
Yep. Make sure there's a lot of free videos on there. There's also a podcast. If you go to meetrene.com, the podcast is really where, gosh, a ton of free information, and it follows the book. There's 21, almost 22 episodes now, but it follows different chapters of the book where I go deeper into it. So if you go to meetrene.com, I'll put it in the section here in the chat, and then you can follow everything there. And if you want to purchase more copies of the book, they make great gifts for people as well. So, but follow me on Instagram and all of those different elements as well.
And any of you guys get an opportunity to see René in person when he's doing one of his keynote speaking events, highly recommend. I can't say enough good things about the experience. Very, very powerful. And you can't, we've been starved of that face-to-face human interaction these past couple of years. And now that things are kind of opening back up and there's less COVID restrictions, I want to encourage you guys to get out there and see him in person. Really good stuff.
Can we do a quick checkout? I'd love to hear what people think. Like, what was your biggest takeaway? Like, let's go, Tyler. What was your biggest takeaway?
So for me, I'm thinking just how I can obviously use this when I'm speaking with clients by really doing a better job of kind of introducing myself prior to kind of asking those important questions. And I think that'll set the tone for just better conversations, more buy-in, helping them understand who we are and then how we're going to be able to help.
Love it. Karen, your biggest takeaway.
Kareen.
There we go. Sorry.
Kareen.
I didn't hear my name. For me, honestly, it was interesting because when you talk about creating the connection and filling in the background on it, that's something I've always done, and I've always felt kind of guilty about because I feel like I take up more time than is necessary. And now that I hear this, I'm like, no, I'm doing fine.
You're doing just fine. The time is wasted when people misunderstand you.
Totally. Yeah.
Later
exactly.
on. So you're taking care of the most important part up front. That's a good job. I love that. Let's see here. Some of the other people turn their cameras off, but anybody else want to turn the camera off and chime in? And Anna, I am in California all the time.
I'm sorry, my camera is not working, but I like to say that I think the first impression speaks a million things. So you capture my attention, the way you presented yourself, the way you invested in yourself. And I think that's where it's all about what really you want to provide to your customer. And it starts with you. I mean, with me in this case, what is it that I want to give to my customer? And that has to start, what am I willing to spend in myself to better myself, to project to other customers? I think that's the main key. And of course, other tools that you'll be providing. But I think the first impression of the way you presented yourself, I love it. I think it's great.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Appreciate it. And Bill.
Oh, I probably said more than I should already, but I'm glad to hear that there's science behind it. And I really appreciate your 3-step approach, because I think that that sounds like anybody could do it. Instead of 12 steps or 24 months of study and you'll have this down. No, 3 steps.
Yeah.
Tell your story, build a context. Then your accomplishment makes sense to the customer, so he doesn't have to make something up to fill in the blanks. And then how is that drive applicable today? I think this is my approach to ministry, and I didn't really realize it was a science.
I love it. Well, any good leaders intuitively doing it, which is what we followed. We studied people like you, Bill, and then when we followed the good storytellers, then we put a codified to it. And you know this as well as I do, that the science catches up to what we've known for years. Just takes science a while to figure it out.
Unfortunately, there are not enough believers in science.
I agree with you. I agree.
Cut them off.
Yeah, too political. Sorry.
All right, Jeff, take us home.
All right. Well, thanks again for everybody tuning in live. If you weren't able to tune in live, again, put in the comments, #recording. We're going to post this in our private Facebook group, JVN Real Estate Syndicate. And we will be doing a follow-up with René in the weeks to come. I'll make sure that you guys get all that in advance so you can put it on your calendar. And please, once again, if you want to lay claim to a copy of his book, send me a text message, a Facebook Messenger message, or an Instagram message with #influence, and I'll make sure to make arrangements to get one of the books to you. Thanks again, Renee.
Jeff did purchase these for you. So these aren't, we don't give these books away for free. Jeff did invest in these. And so I appreciate that. And just want to make sure people know this is not a book we just give away for free.
Amen.
So, thank you.
All right. Take care, Renee.
Thanks
Good
so
luck
much.
thawing out, digging
Yeah.
out.
We need it.
All right.
Take care. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.